Okay. Hello, Miss Grant here. You're watching this video if you're working through the orange cup sheets in maths this week. Now, you're going to start off with a really quick review of one-step equations just to work on the basics. And then you're going to do a couple of sheets on two-step equations, taking through all the different types of things that you can have. So it gets quite complicated towards the end. So one-step equations, I'd like to remind you that you always do the opposite. So for example, if I have k plus 7 equals 2, what's the opposite of plus 7? It's minus 7. So you write yourself a little minus 7 under both sides, and then you think to yourself, well, what is 2 minus 7? It's minus 5. And then on the left, we had 7 minus 7, so they disappeared. All we've got left is k, so it's k equals, and then minus 5, yeah? Because these ones, the plus 7 minus 7 disappeared, so all we were left with was the k equals and minus 5. Here, what we've got is plus 9. So what's the opposite of plus 9? Minus 9. So we write a little minus 9 under both sides. Here, plus 9 minus 9, they disappear. So all we've got on the left is d. We've got the equal sign, and then 25 minus 9, 16. Okay, I'm just going to do the next two just to revise. We've got y minus 3 equals 11. What's the opposite of minus 3? Plus 3. You write it under both sides. And then we're left with, well, these ones, minus 3 plus 3, like that disappears. That's why we chose plus 3. So we've got y on the left. We've got our equal sign. And then this lot, 11 plus 3 became 14. And that makes sense. Y minus 3 equals 11. Well, y must have been 14 because 14 minus 3 is 11. Last one of these ones I'm going to go through. F plus 3 equals 0. So what's the opposite of plus 3? Minus 3. So the plus 3 and the minus 3 makes that disappear. You don't have to draw that x, by the way, like they're crossing out. So we end up with F equals, and now what do we have left over here? 0 minus 3, negative 3. Now, if you want to do 0 minus 3 or 25 minus 9 or 2 minus 7 on your calculator, you're perfectly welcome to. I'm not testing you on your addition or subtraction. I'm testing you on your equations knowledge. Now, they're going to do exactly the same if they're negatives or decimals. So here, the opposite of minus 3 was plus 3. So we would have ended up with u on the left, we've got our equal sign, and 0.7 plus 3 is 3.7. But if you're struggling with your fractions and decimals, please use your calculator. Question 11 is the next hard kind of type. We've got 1 plus c equals 5.5, yeah? Now, we're not trying to get rid of the plus c, we're trying to get rid of the 1. Whenever we write like c equals, which our answer in the end is going to be, there's automatically a plus sign in front of it. Every time you see something without a plus or minus in front of it, you automatically assume it's a plus because it's a positive number, and plus is the same as positive. It's kind of like we're writing numbers in an order instead of writing that it's going to be adding to something. It's just a different way to look at numbers. So we don't often write positive c like that. We'll just write that plus. So this positive, like it was there, but we don't ever bother really writing it. Anyway, let's get rid of this 1. At the moment, is this a positive 1 or a negative 1? At the moment, it's a positive 1 because there's nothing in front of it. So every time you have a number out the front that has nothing on it, you minus it. So we're minusing 1 from both sides. 1 minus 1 is 0, so that gets rid of that. So we just have our plus c, which we already discussed down below. And 5.5 minus 1, it's okay if you use a calculator, but that's 4.5. Okay. The next main types you're going to get are these ones. Now, if you ever have a number in front of a letter, see, look at this 4y, that's the same as 4 times y. equals negative 12. But in maths, there's always something that we don't like to write. Like we don't write the plus in front of positive numbers, although we do write a negative, minus in front of negative numbers. We don't write a times if it's a number times a letter. We do if it's a number times a number. So for example, if I had 4 times 3, it wouldn't make sense to write 3 because then people would think it's 43, so we'd write a times. But here we've got 4 times y, we don't bother writing the times. It's 4 times y equals negative 12. What's the opposite of timesing by 4? Because that's the same as y times 4, yeah? What's the opposite of timesing by 4? Well, it's dividing. So where you write a little divide by 4, you can see that this worksheet's already done that. And it equals, well, negative 12 divided by 4 was negative 3. So if we have a look at question 18, 8y equals 192. That's the same as 8 times y, so we're going to divide. And even if you don't remember that it's times, like if you associate every time you've got like a number and then a letter and nothing in between, you divide to get rid of it, I'm okay with that. So we've got y equals. Now, it's really important that you do 192 divided by 8 and not the other way around. In your calculator, you want 192 divided by 8. 192 divided by 8. Ugh, now I have to do it in my head. 160 is 24. I think it's 24. Yeah, 24. If you'd done it the other way around, 8 divided by 192, you would have gotten 1 over 24, which looks really small. But it's not necessarily the wrong answer. You just have to remember that you're always doing whatever's here divided by whatever's in front of here, yeah? In your calculator, you would do 192 divided by 8 that way. The next type is when we have fractions. Now, fractions are divisions. See the division sign? That's literally the fractions with something on the top and something on the bottom. It's just a way for us to write it all in one line. Now, if we have a divided by 5 equals 6, we need to do the opposite. The opposite of dividing is timesing. So whenever you have a fraction you times, we'll do 6 times 5 is 30. So for example, with this one, we've got a little, the 3's on the bottom, so we're going to times by 3. Now this is like saying we've got r over 3 times 3, which is the same as 3 over 1. So they would cancel out. We would end up with r divided by 1, which is just r. Even if you don't understand that, that's okay. The main thing to remember is that this 3 and this 3 will cancel out, and we'll end up with r equals 2 times 3, which is 6. So you always times by what's on the bottom. So for example, this one, we would write times 6 times 6, and we would end up with t equals negative 7 times 6, negative 42. And if you're unsure about your positives and negatives, well, firstly, if it's a negative times a positive, it comes out as negative. Like if the signs are different, it comes out as negative. If the signs are the same, it's positive, but calculators are fine. And this one, yeah, it's not written as a fraction, it's written as like a division, but that makes it easier because you remember the opposite of dividing is timesing. Okay, so that was a whole lot on one-step equations. This one says to turn these upside down. So if you have a fraction equals a fraction, you can turn both the fractions upside down. And this one would be 2 on 1, but 2 on 1 is the same as just 2. Which means we would want to times by 3. So Q equals 2 times 3, which is 6. So you can do the same with the other one, just it'll be C on 4 equals 11 on 2, yeah? And then we'll times by 4. So C equals 44. You can do it. You can do it. Okay. Now, these guys talk you through the steps. So if you've got two-step equations, you need to get rid of any addition and subtraction before you get rid of multiplication and division. And that's because essentially we're undoing stuff that has happened to get x on its own. So when you undo stuff, you have to do it in the opposite order. So if I'm like packing stuff in the car, I've put stuff in the back and like stuff on top of other stuff. I have to get the stuff that I put on top off before I get the bottom stuff off, if that makes sense. Anyway, that makes no sense, don't worry. So we've got x plus 5 equals 23. I mean, 3x plus 5 equals 23. So the x is what I'm trying to find. It's been multiplied by the 3 first, and then it's had plus 5 done to it afterwards. So the plus 5 is the last thing that happens, so I have to get rid of that first. We get rid of a plus by minusing. Now, that leaves 3x on its own, because remember, the plus 5 and the minus 5 disappear. We get the 3x on its own on the left. 23 minus 5 is 18, so we get 3x equals 18. And now it's just a one-step equation. And you know what to do when it's just something with a letter equals something else. You divide, which is why they did divide by 3, divided by 3. The divides by 3 gets rid of that 3. We end up with x equals 18 divided by 3, which is 6. So they've given you hints with these ones, so I'm not going to help you with those, but I'm going to help you with this one. At the moment, that's 3g plus 15 equals negative 12. So we need to get rid of that 15. So we, like this 15 first, yeah? So we're going to minus, because it's plus. Plus 15 minus 15, they disappear. What we've got left on the left is that 3g. That 3 is still there. And the equal sign. Now, negative 12 take 15. That's negative 27. If you get confused, you can do it in your calculator. Minus 12, minus 15. Okay, we're not finished yet. We've got 3g equals negative 27. How do I get rid of the number that's right in front of the letter without anything there? We divide. So that dividing gets rid of the 3's on the left. So I'm just left with g. I've got my equal sign, and negative 27 divided by 3, you would chuck it in exactly like that. Negative 27 divided by 3, negative 9. It doesn't, I'm going to do this one. Okay, so we've got negative 6c plus 12 equals negative 12. I need to get rid of the plus 12, so we're going to minus. I wish I'd done that in green. Okay, that's what I get for being so particular. So we're getting rid of that 12 because plus 12 minus 12, that's why we chose to minus 12. That's left us with negative 6c equals minus 12 minus 12, negative 24. Now, you may think you have to plus 6. You don't. This negative 6c, this negative 6 is with the c. There's nothing in between it and the c. So that negative belongs with the 6, and that's been times by c. So we divide by negative 6. So we end up with, oh, wrong color, negative 6 divided by negative 6, they disappear. So that's just c equals, and now negative 24 divided by negative 6 is positive 4. And I don't write a plus. The next kind of question you'll get is where you've got a fraction plus or minus something equals something else, yeah? So, just like before, we have to get rid of whatever was plus minus first. So the opposite of minus 2 is plus 2. So we write a little plus 2 on both sides. And then that got rid of the minus 2 plus 2. So we ended up with just k over 8 equals, and then 9 plus 2 was 11. And now remember from our one-step equations, to get rid of a fraction, we write a times 8 times 8. But, you know, I always like to write it here, so I can just be like, doof, doof. But anyway, 11 times 8, we're still just left with k on the left, and it's 11 times 8 is 88. Let me try one that doesn't have the hints. Okay, we've got e over 2 minus 9 equals 5. So we need to get rid of this thing first. What's the opposite of minus 9? Plus 9. So by plussing 9, we get rid of that. So we've still got e over 2 equals, and then 5 plus 9, 14. Now, we've got e over 2 equals 14. This is just like what we did, back here, So we're going to times by whatever's on the bottom. Whenever you've got a fraction, you times by what's on the bottom. So we're going to write a little times 2 times 2. And what that does is that gets rid of the 2's from the left, because dividing by 2 times 2 undoes it. We've just got the e, and then 14 times 2 is 28. So that's how you do those. You can kind of do them all the same. And if it's a negative with it, so for example, we've got negative u on 5 plus 13 equals 0. Well, we're still going to minus 13 from both sides. So we've got negative u on 5 equals 0 minus 13, which is negative 13, because these cancelled out. Now, where you place this negative is quite important. Well, it's actually not important at all. That negative can either be at the front, or it can be with the u, or it can be with the 5. And I always like to treat it like it's with the bottom for these. Because now I can just go times minus 5 times minus 5. And if you divide by minus 5 and times by minus 5, they disappear. So I just get normal u equals negative 13 times negative 5, positive 65. So if you've got a minus with it, like you get rid of that when it comes to multiplying or dividing. So for example, this one, of course we start off by, it's plus 4, so we minus the 4 first. So we end up with, one colour, m over negative 2 equals negative 11, take 4, negative 15. And we're going to times by minus 2. So we're going to end up with m equals negative 15 times negative 2, positive 30. So these are quite difficult adaptations of these, and you get quite complicated. Have a go. The last kind of one is where you have a whole big thing divided by something. And it's only when the whole, x plus 4, that whole thing was divided by 3 equals 9. That's the only time you times first to get rid of it. So we're timesing by 3 to get rid of that. That gets rid of that 3. We end up with x plus 4 equals, 9 times 3 was 27, and then we just subtract like normal. So let me find one without the hints. Here we go. Our first step is going to be, because the whole of b plus 2 is over 3, it's not b over 3 plus 2. It doesn't look like that. It's b plus 2 over 3, like the whole thing. So we're going to times by 3, times by 3. So that gets rid of those, and we end up with, wrong colour, b plus 2 equals 5 times 3 is 15. And now you know what that is. You probably don't even need to write this bit. Minus 2, b equals 13. That's what you're going to do for those. You get quite complicated shortly. Like, for example, 2e over 7 equals 6. You always times by what's on the bottom and then divide by what's on the top, because fractions suck. So we're timesing by 7 to get rid of that. So divided 7 times 7 got rid of it. We've got 2e equals, and 6 times 7 is 42. So you always times by what's on the bottom first. And now, do you remember how do you get rid of these? You divide. So we're going to divide by 2. That got rid of those. We end up with e equals 42 divided by 2, 21. And that's pretty much it. The rest are just harder versions, but they give you hints. Ooh, the last page gets quite difficult. Love it.